November 3rd, 2020, and the weeks that followed left ripple effects that changed the very fabric of politics in our country. And here in North Carolina, there is no exception.
From Manteo to Murphy, the labels of blue or red became just as relevant outside the ballot box as they did on Election Day. Tonight, we take a look at the past, present, and future for the Tar Heel State as we gear up for another election just around the corner and decide how we as citizens should make our mark in this process.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to From Manteo to Murphy, an inside look at North Carolina politics. I'm Thomas Hart.
And I'm Anna Harris. Before we can dive into what's ahead, we have to take a look back on the incredibly tense election just 1 year ago.
Well, the 2020 election was nothing short of unpredictable. Let's break down some of the key moments. I mean, the presidential race itself took weeks to find out a winner, and it was just, it was something unprecedented that we haven't seen since 2000.
Exactly, and I know that a big part of the pause was the mail-in voting. Like many states prior to the pandemic had mail-in voting, and a lot of people didn't know that. But because of that, and it sparked, because of the pandemic and all the regulations, a lot of people felt more comfortable doing absentee and mail-in voting in general. So that definitely set back the votes in and of itself.
I mean, you had 4 states, Oregon, Hawaii, Colorado, Washington, Utah, actually 5 that all had specifically only mail-in voting. And as we talk about, that's something completely unprecedented that we hadn't seen, where you can't even go to a poll. You can't go to a public location and cast your ballot. Instead, you were doing it weeks ahead.
Exactly, and about 1 in 4 voters did cast their ballots by mail in 2016, and in 2020, 54% voted in person and 46% were mail-in or absentee. So that was a definitely different statistics rather than that in 2016. But another one of the major events were the Capitol attacks on January 6th. I know that sparked huge controversy in and of itself, with that a bunch of Trump supporters mobbed the Capitol building that morning, and it caused major chaos from that. And a lot of that chaos came from the app Parler, which is similar to Twitter. It just doesn't have any regulations on censorship.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously something that I think when I saw the scenes on Twitter, on Facebook, on the news, it almost looked like a movie. It didn't look like something that was real life. And it's because, A, we had never seen anything like that before, but to see it all happening in the 21st century, where we have instant access to everything that's going on. I mean, there was tweets I saw of people's point of view inside the Capitol building, and that's something we never see. A, because the Capitol is always so locked down, but B, to also see this major news event take place as it was, as we were able to watch it on social media. It was truly incredible. I mean, it was obviously a scary scene for everyone, but it was actually really interesting to see everyone's perspective.
Right. And I remember seeing on the news that day, watching all these people climb on top of the Capitol building and being like, there's absolutely no way this is real life right now. Because the election caused enough controversy in and of itself. You wouldn't think that it would get to that, escalate to that point. But in North Carolina, outside of the Capitol, there was a big controversy with Tom Tillis and the election with Cal Cunningham.
Yeah, that was one. I mean, if you lived in the state of North Carolina for months, you saw all the Tom Tillis, Cal Cunningham commercials, and you couldn't escape them. But weeks before that, weeks before the election, Cal Cunningham had a sex scandal that came out about him cheating with his wife and cheating on his wife. And that's something that, I mean, you want to talk about, something that's going to completely change the outcome of an election. That's it right there.
Exactly. And outside of the Tom Tillis Cunningham race, we had different local elections became active and sparked major voter involvement because people became very, very passionate in this last, I would say, 4 years, with the way that Trump handled his own election, and then just the way people view politics in general. I know that our generation became so prominent on social media and became so involved and passionate about their point of views that local races had the most voting that they've had in a very long time.
That was something when we were looking into this. In 2016, 69% of registered voters in North Carolina turned up for the general election. 2020, 75% of registered voters in North Carolina showed up for the general election. But mind you, 400,000 more people registered to vote. That's a 6% increase. That's the biggest increase since 2004, when Bush ran for re-election against John Kerry in the state of North Carolina. So a huge voter turnout. and something that, hopefully we see more and more people getting involved in politics throughout the years and, becoming more involved with the politics and the community around them, I guess.
Yes, I completely agree. One of the best ways to hear about how these local races played out is to talk to a candidate themselves. Emmy Beck-Aiden had a chance to sit down with former state Senate candidate for the District 27 seat, Sebastian King, to hear his thoughts about life in politics.
How can we help the working people? How can we make my family's story a reality for more people? My parents lived the American dream. They came from a very impoverished family. My mom was on Medicaid, had me at a very young age, and they were able to make something of themselves because of how great our country is. And we have to preserve that. I think it's so important to fight for what makes America special. And what makes America special is the fact that you can become anything in your life. You could start with nothing, and you could run for office, be your party's nominee, or you can make a difference legislatively, or you can just get involved in campaigns, or just in the political process, and you can immediately make an impact.
But the way Sebastian thought he would make his impact has changed a lot in the last 12 months. He worked in North Carolina Majority Whip John Hardister's office for several years before deciding to vie for a seat of his own. He came up short after taking on incumbent Senator Michael Garrett as the 2020 Republican nominee for the 27th District. And the election process wasn't even close to what he or anyone else expected.
There's always the saying of you never know what you're going to get in politics. Well, you sign up. I was a younger guy. I was 28, 27 at the time, and then bam, we got hit with the coronavirus right in the middle of the campaign. So what we've always done in campaigns was go door to door, knock on people's door, and have good conversations with them. But the pandemic really limited the opportunity to have those, and we depended heavily on social media, where we were able to communicate a message, but it was still very hard to have that connection like you typically do in an election cycle.
Sebastian's involvement in the world of North Carolina politics is far from over. He now works as a government affairs liaison at the state's Police Benevolent Association.
I think getting back and having those conversations with people after the coronavirus and helping them recover and being part of the process of the General Assembly of, helping work alongside legislators, just giving advice with what's going on in law enforcement has been very, very beneficial because folks, even at the General Assembly, weren't up there as much after the election as they typically are. Now they are. So it's been a very unique about 2 years now.
As we gear up to 2022, he shares his primary goal, regardless of the role he serves in.
If you ask a lot of immigrants, they'll say, we want to come here so our child can have a better life or so I can find opportunity. And the moment America loses that, we lose what makes us special. So I'm going to continue fighting for that, whether that's running for the state house or state senate or just being involved as a volunteer or being a government affairs liaison. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm passionate about. No longer is the sentiment true that you have to wait your turn to get involved. You see AOC on the left, Madison Cawthorn on the right, and they're polarized examples of what you can do as a young person now to get involved. Young people can truly make the difference. And what I've always said is, look, the decisions that all these older politicians, the average age in Congress is 80, they don't have to live with the decisions they make, but if the more young people get involved, the decisions directly impact them and their future families. And that's what I think makes all the difference. I think that would lead to better policy making, better decision making, and being thoughtful about the future.
Definitely some great insight from someone who knows it best. Coming back from the break, we'll hear how one candidate is taking another chance at his district seat in the lower chamber.
And we take a look at the issues affecting North Carolinians the most. We'll be back soon. Stay with us.
Welcome to High Point University. On this campus, we are focused on preparing students for the world as it is going to be.
Hi, I'm Steve Wozniak, the Woz, and I'm proud to be High Point University's Innovator in Residence.
I'm Cent Marshall, CEO of the Dallas Mavericks, and I am proud to be High Point University's Sports Executive in Residence.
I'm Mark Randolph, and I'm proud to be the Entrepreneur in Residence at the premier life skills university, High Point University.
Welcome back. Now, as the discussions of the 2020 election didn't end last November, in fact, some people are using it as a new beginning. Candidate for U.S. Congress Lee Haywood talked with us about why he's running again in 2022.
My name is Lee Haywood, and I'm a candidate for U.S. House of Representatives in the 6th Congressional District.
Lee said the signature line countless times in 2020, but the results didn't swing his way.
I lost, big time.
But that didn't stop him from taking another shot at that same office. He received support from former office holder Mark Walker as he made the initial decision to jump into life as a candidate.
About 2 or 3 years ago, the district changed, and they condensed it down to Guilford and the lower half of Forsyth. It went from basically a slightly leaning Republican district to a heavily leaning Democrat district. Well, my friend Mark Walker decided he was not going to run again, and nobody else was stepping forward. I'm not a particularly religious guy, but I am Southern Baptist. God was tapping me on the shoulder, said, this is you right here, you've got to run. After lengthy conversations with Representative Walker, we're friends, I said, Mark, I'm feeling the urge, God's given me the sign to run. And he said, well, you better run then.
His break after the November 2020 election didn't last long, though, as he soon felt the need to get back to work as congressional redistricting season approached.
I never really shut everything down. I knew this was coming. I knew redistricting was coming. It happens every 10 years with the census. So by law, they have to, do redistricting all across the state, both for state house races and, congressional races as well. So I knew it was coming. But I never really shut anything down from my last campaign. I was just sort of waiting to see what, sort of taking a breather. And I just felt the time was right. There was a couple of people expressing interest in the seat. And I said, well, I better get in, not let them get a head start on me. And they actually did me a favor because I don't need to be sitting on my laurels. I need to be working.
Lee thinks there are 3 main things elected officials need to be working on ensuring:
safe streets, safe borders, and safe ballots,
as well as the business environment in the state.
We're a strong right-to-work state, and it needs to stay that way. But you've got Apple coming in. I think they're coming into the to the Raleigh-Durham area. They're going to bring 3,000 jobs, and it's a success story, and we need to celebrate that. But we want to make sure that they don't change that business environment and the right-to-work atmosphere that we've created.
And as he looks towards the upcoming election, Lee discusses why he loves calling this district home.
The gateway to the whole state. I mean, I've lived here close to 50 years, right around 50 years. I love this district. Now, there again, it's changed. It'll change again with this redistricting that's going to happen in a couple of weeks. So we don't know what it's going to be, but I just love the area. I live three hours from the coast, 3 hours from the mountains. I can't imagine a better place to live.
We'll definitely have to keep an eye on that Congress race with the primaries right around the corner. Just ahead, we look at the future of politics for our next generation.
And hear from someone who knows the importance of the ballot box. We'll be right back.
Welcome to High Point University. On this campus, we are focused on preparing students for the world as it is going to be.
Hi, I'm Steve Wozniak, the Woz, and I'm proud to be High Point University's Innovator in Residence.
I'm Cent Marshall, CEO of the Dallas Mavericks, and I am proud to be High Point University's Sports Executive in Residence.
I'm Mark Randolph, and I'm proud to be the Entrepreneur in Residence at the premier life skills university, High Point University.
Welcome back to From Manteo to Murphy. College students and people our age have become very active in the political process, from holding protests and demonstrations to creating movements on social media. They are all sharing their beliefs because of one simple concern: what's next?
That's right, and the answer to that question looks a little different for each person, but let's talk about some of the most common issues concerning people in this generation.
Yes, I know politics is absolutely everywhere you go. We see it on social media, you see it by people just walking down the street, people will bring it up. It's so prominent, and it's almost made the country more divided because of how prominent it is.
I think that's something that we had not seen. I've been talking about it a lot tonight, that there's been a lot of things that we haven't seen until this election, but this is one of them. I mean, social media has become obviously so more prominent over the past 4 years, and it will keep going this way. But this was one of the first elections where I truly felt like a lot of it was won and lost over social media, and that was because everyone got into it.
Exactly. Like, we had the Parler thing, like we mentioned earlier. Facebook plays a huge role. Twitter does. Like, I know for myself, like, I had to just stop using Twitter last year because it honestly caused me anxiety to go on, and that has its positives and negatives, because Twitter has some real news, and then you consider fake news as well, and people I think social media is mainly, yes, it can be very informative, but it also causes a ton of reaction. And it's not the most proactive always, but it's a lot of reactive things.
Now, obviously, in the Triangle and in the Triad area, there's a ton of colleges all throughout. And us as students, student debt and student loans was something that a lot of us had questions about. And going into this election, because of the pandemic, student loans were paused. And so I think for a lot of people, that was something they kept an eye on throughout this election and what was going to be next. Obviously, with the Democratic Party, in some states, or in some sense, you get some candidates that believe there shouldn't be student debt at all. And obviously, Biden's take on that was not that there shouldn't be student debt, but it should be reduced to some certain amount. So I think it's something that is definitely interesting to keep an eye on. But for us college students, that was something we kept a really, we had a very strong interest in.
Yes, obviously, because as two seniors in college, like this is going to affect us tomorrow. This is going to affect us for the rest of our lives, depending on how many loans we take out. Some interesting statistics were that in 2021, the total student loan debt in Q2 was a record-breaking $1.7 trillion, and an increase of 3% since Q2 in 2020. In 2021, U.S. borrowers were a total of 45 million people.
And I mean, we talk about it, but you're exactly right. This was one of the first elections for our generation that we thought, okay, whoever gets elected tomorrow or in a few weeks when we finally knew the response, was that this was going to be an effect that was going to have on us immediately. And in the 2016 election, obviously most of us were not, none of us of our generation was able to vote. But when you look at this 2020 election, it was like, okay, this is our time. Whatever happens today is going to make an impact on us tomorrow. And that was something that was so new for us college students.
Another major thing that happened in the last couple of years were a lot of social justice movements. Obviously, we saw a lot of transformation with the Black Lives Matter movement, from the Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. Everything in the summer of 2021 just like really picked up, which also caused the defunding the police movement. And another thing that's really sparked up in 2021 have been nurses and doctors taking a stand on what they believe about the vaccinations.
And I think that's one that's been so interesting to me. And it's just because I think it's happening right now. It's happening right in front of us. We're seeing it, I'm sure as most families do. We all know someone in our family, or we know of someone that is a healthcare worker. And so it's really interesting to get everyone's point of view and perspective on what their stance on is on the virus and the vaccine. And I mean, when you look at it, now we've got the booster shots rolling out. I saw just a few weeks ago the first lady that got her vaccine that was a healthcare worker now has her booster shot. And so with the booster shot starting to roll out and with it being passed by the FDA, you're now seeing places that say, hey, get the vaccine. You don't get the vaccine, see you later.
Exactly. And that's obviously, people pull the argument of like, I want to do what I want to do with my own body, and like people shouldn't be making the health decisions, but it's also like, you got to think of how other people are going to be affected by this. And a lot of companies are just taking a lot of different stands on it. So it's going to be an ever-changing movement. And I feel like this is definitely not the end of the vaccine debate.
100% not the end. It's, I mean, and like you said, the government jobs are starting to mandate it more. The question is when we get to these private companies, when they start mandating it, where will we see that change? And for people that have to work remote, will they be required to get the vaccines?
Yes. So we've seen a lot of changes as college students, and I know that we're going to see a lot in the future. Well, to round out our night, we hear from a college student who is not only passionate about politics, but about making sure the voices of everyone are heard.
My name is Dalton Lucas. I'm a senior political science major here at High Point University. I guess my start in North Carolina politics came when I worked for Next Gen my first semester. Next Gen is a nonprofit organization that's dedicated to increasing the youth vote. After Next Gen, I got on board with Campus Vote Project, which is a nonpartisan voter group, again, just designed to increase the youth vote, increase engagement, increase registration, and then increase our overall turnout in elections. For voter registration here at High Point University, we really wanted to take it as an approach to make it an ingrained part of High Point University's culture, to where students are expected as High Point University students to register and participate in our democratic processes. Because when you register to vote your freshman year, you're more likely to register the next year and you're more likely to vote. Research has demonstrated, I think it triples your likelihood of becoming a lifetime voter if you vote in college. So really what we wanted to do is to make sure that students are equipped with every tool necessary that they need in order to register to vote and then to have, the ability to get to the polling location. 2020, we saw a 26% increase in students that voted. So that put us at 64% in 2020. That's only 2 points below the national average. And in 2016, we were voting at around 35% here. Now we're voting at 64%. So that's, incredible and a testament to really the work of multiple parties on campus. And I'm really proud of that number. Time Magazine, really cool opportunity. I was a chief judge at a polling precinct. And Time Magazine was looking for people that have been involved in elections and were interested, especially in nonpartisan voter engagement, which is the bulk of what I've done here on campus. Flashback to 2020, we were in the midst of a wave of COVID during the November presidential election and general elections. And a lot of poll workers are typically those that are retired, so 65 and older, and those are the people that are most at risk for COVID. So boards of elections were seeing a large drop-off in the amount of volunteers that they were going to have on election day. So they put out an alert saying, hey, young people, come and work the polls. And I was like, heck yeah, that's right up my alley. So, because on election day, it's either me being in a nervous tussle or me doing something. So it was great to be able to work a polling precinct, but not only work it, but to run it and to really get to see how safe and secure our election systems are in person, and to provide, every single person that came through that door with a safe, secure, and comfortable voting experience. The issues that are decided today are going to affect us most tomorrow. And whatever issue that you care about, everybody cares about something, and everything is unfortunately impacted by politics. And by not engaging in that system, you're ceding your own ability, your own sovereignty to play a role in our process, which is your fundamental right. So you don't cede your fundamental right because you don't like to talk about politics. Politics impacts everything we do in this country. It's unfortunately the game we have to play in order to get stuff done. And in order to get stuff done, we need young people to vote and to participate and to be engaged, because without that, we have nothing.
Thanks to Dalton for all the work you do, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this glimpse into the world of North Carolina politics. From Manteo to Murphy, I'm Thomas Hart.
And I'm Anna Harris. Have a great night.